topic we're going to come back to, both in this section of the lecture and in the mobility discussion. I wanted to highlight two types of spatial embedding. Again, I'm focusing here on this issue of situating agents within some 2D space. Okay? And we're going to put aside for the moment the issue of that in some models, we may want those agents to move. Because that's not unique to all models which are spatial embedding, it's to some. But we make a distinction for embedding more generally between two types of spatial representation. One is the continuous embedding. And here, we've actually seen it before with the model we've built up. We saw it a number of times last time when we were examining the interaction, the interplay between network type and spatial location. So those who were here last time, or those who have viewed the video, which I strongly urge those who couldn't be here last time to do, because last lecture was quite very important in the broader scheme of the course. Could you remind me of two types of networks or network layouts that where there's an interaction between someone's connections on the one hand and their location on the other? Okay, so small world is something which is topologically based. It's a mixture, you recall, of two things. It's a mixture of Poisson random on the one hand, and a mixture of ring lattice on the other. Now, we sometimes chose to display those with certain layout algorithms, but there's two types of networks where there's an interaction of necessity between in AnyLogic between the layout and the location of the agents in space. And I'll give you a hint. The very first type of network representation which we used, it was a distance-based. So two people are connected if they're within a certain distance of each other, right?
But ring lattice too, right? So they're connected to all these neighbors.
No, but that was invariant of what their location is in space. That was purely a logical connection. It picked arbitrarily who you're connected to in your left and right.
Oh, and then arranged them.
And then you could render it in different ways. And one of the ways it showed it nicely on the screen. But that connection was not dependent upon or contingent upon you being close together. In distance-based, it is. You're only connected if you're within a certain distance of each other. Okay? And then there was a different type where we had a spring mass layout, which basically located people together closely in space if they were connected together. That's actually a layout type, but for any sort of network, if they're connected, it will try to put them spatially closer together. Those are two types of interaction we saw. But in any case, all of these were aspects of continuous space. These circles that we were laying out could be overlapped in some cases. Could be arbitrarily close together. Most of the time, we had few of them, and so they happen to fall apart, but sometimes you'd see overlaps. Okay, so that's a continuous space. There's no restriction on the density, how many can be near each other, or what have you. The other possibility is this discrete space, where we have these discrete cells, these patches, which are mutually exclusive, and you're in either one patch or a given patch has at least has 0 or 1 agents in it, and a given agent's in exactly one patch. Okay. And we'll see there's a whole set of models that fall into this thing. And this is a classic way, arguably probably the oldest type of agent-based model, going back to the 50s.
Do we get to choose cell size?
Yes. Okay. Yes, and we'll see how you do that. Okay, we'll see how to do that today in spades. So here you divide it into columns and rows. and you have only one agent in a given cell at the same time, and each agent's in exactly one cell. Okay. Okay. So to determine this type of spatial embedding, we go to the environment. The environment is going to determine whether it's continuous or discrete mapping. It has a certain visual width and height, and you can also tell it to divide it up into grid size. We'll see where that gets done, how many grid cells each way. So there's kind of the spatial extent, and then there's the question of how finely do you divide that up? How finely do you divide it up? What are the size of the patches? What's the spatial granularity or the spatial resolution that operate? We'll see how that's specified. Okay, those are two different things. You could imagine, just like you could imagine having for a classic stock and flow model a long period of time, 100-year simulation, but you do it at 1 year time steps versus 1 week time steps. Similarly, you could have a large area depicted and very coarse grained. Maybe you have 10 cells each way, or 10 grid marks each way. So divide up to 10 cells along each dimension. Or maybe you have up to 100 or 1,000 along each line. Okay? And then finally, the environment's going to specify the characteristic of the discrete neighborhoods for discrete spaces. So with discrete spaces, there's a question of who's next to whom, okay? I probably butcher the English language. I always get confused when whom and who should be used. Sorry? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. I rest assured. So here we have a space divided up into cells, and this might be our index individual, person we're concerned with, and we're wondering to whom is that this cell considered adjacent? Is it just to these 4, or is it to 8? These are the two modes supported by AnyLogic. In other words, is it only the cardinal directions, or is it also these intercardinal directions, northeast, southwest, northwest, and southeast? So that's an important question. Incidentally, it turns out, I don't know why AnyLogic hasn't implemented this yet. It turns out that you can map a space like this even more generally into hexagons. And it turns out hexagons tessellate a space more efficiently because you have each cell connected to 6 neighbors in a very sort of regular way, and turns out that's the largest polygon that can be embedded in a plane. But I won't let my nerdiness get the best of me right now. So in any case, they support 2 types of sort of square embedding, and you can dictate which type you're going to use. Okay, so this is just an overview. I want to go through the continuous environment just so we can get a glimpse of this. So last time